Hey, hello and welcome to my live stream, and we are live. So, last week we started on doing the sketch for head number 11. Over the week I tried something different, so I did like 2 more sketches because I did not like the first one. And now I prepped the sketch basically, and we have enough time to paint this guy today. Hopefully we can push it far and I can show you some stuff. Yeah, so that's the plan for today. So here we have the sketch. That's just the outline. So, and usually when I finish the sketch, the first thing I do is I make a silhouette shape. So I have the sketch. And I imagined, like, we started out with a guy on the last stream where we gave him a little bit more beard and made him look more old. And the thing is, I did not know where to go with this, so I decided to just think about a little bit. And I did a couple sketches actually. I can show you also the other sketch. For example, I just tried some different stuff just to see like what kind of direction I wanted to go, and then I just I think the third sketch basically was the one I like to go, which is basically to give him more of a cowboy vibe. Let me put the music a little bit down. It's super loud. Okay, now. Yeah. So let's do it. And if you have any questions, just type it in the chat and I try to answer them while painting. So from this position on, we have 2 routes we can go. We can either decide to do a grayscale painting. So we do basically a black and white painting, and then which works as an underlay, and then we paint over it. And the other method is the direct color method. It's basically we directly paint into color, which is a little bit more challenging because you have to juggle tone, color, and light simultaneously. But the grayscale method is a little bit easier if you're a beginner, because you can only concentrate on rendering and shading in the beginning. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the live stream, your casual grotesque boy. That's what I call an awesome name. So, man, I can't. This name is so funny. I cannot even focus on continuing. Oh man, that's a goodie. So, here, so like I said, we are now can decide if we want to do a grayscale painting or we want to directly paint in color. I also looked for more reference afterwards in the process. So you see, I added just more reference because I felt like this is a very nice reference. Also, I love the look on Leonardo DiCaprio's face on Django Unchained. And here I really enjoyed like how the light is working, which could be pretty cool for the character. So if you develop your sketch, which can be like way more defined than this, because this is super rough. You see, I just did like simple indications and stuff. And if you finish your sketch, I can always recommend just go back and grab more reference, because if you, for example, start with something simple with just a head or something, and then you give him clothing or anything else, then it's always good to just look for more reference. Yeah, so to be honest, I haven't really decided what if I would like to do a grayscale or directly paint into color. But I think I will paint a grayscale image because I think it's for the most people more entertaining. Because also the process at the end is a little bit more difficult to handle. So I can show this also. And also I can only focus on shading the sky. So what is always good is when you have all your reference and then you turn them into gray. And then you see, for example, value shifts. And you can take a look at like how value shifts are working and how is actually the grouping of shadow and light areas and what can work and what doesn't work so well. So for example, I like this lighting here because you have some firm edge cast shadows, but you have also very strong hard light cast shadows. This is too lit. And this is too even lit. This is pretty nice because we have this diagonal line over his face, which could be pretty cool. So let's imagine we will have a light source coming from here, which means this would create basically, it actually has to be here. And then this would actually create, this light hits the character here. So this area would be lit here. This would be in shadow. And then we have everything below this. It's going to be in shadow. And then we actually can just look at the reference we have here. We can basically just take this whole lightning and just apply it to our own character. So we don't even have to think so much. And also, what is great, this is from a movie. And I don't know if this actually is from the original version of Django Unchained, but that also doesn't matter. But what is pretty nice on the reference is that we have basically two light sources. We have one very direct light source, and we have another light source which created this very nice rim light on his ear, for example. And this could be very good for us just to take, because then we basically have this, let's say, just roughly map it out. So this gonna be everything here gonna be in shadow. Then we have this other light source coming from here. So everything here gonna have some sort of rim light. And maybe we can also add some rim light here and very nice on the ear. This is gonna be in shadow as well. It's gonna be very dark here because I think also I'm gonna make the head very dark. And then we have this nice cast shadow under his chin. So the light is coming, and everything else here gonna be dark. Here and here and here. And this is gonna be dark as well. And then we can decide then we can just basically try to see what looks best when we come to the lower part, which is not so important because we want to have the most detail here. And we don't want to detail everything, because when everything is detailed, nothing is detailed, basically. So yeah, that's going to be the plan. I hope you understood it. Let me read the chat. Okay. Man, I love this name. This is so good. Okay. So usually when a sketch is done, I just do it again for you guys. Yeah, so the question is, so if I try to put down the dark places first, yes. And that's the way you can basically start. So you can go from dark to light, which is actually a very good method, or you go from light to dark. In Photoshop, you can do both. But yeah, basically what I want to do always is to separate my light side and my shadow side in the beginning. So you have a very clear read from light and shadow. When I started out, I also always did the mistake that I basically tried to paint it everything in. So I did some midtones here, some shadows here, some light there. But the problem is if you don't have a very clear separation of light and dark, you get a very muddy result at the end. So this is very good if you always start with your darks. You can also start with your lights, which would be way tougher. But let's see, for example, when you have this reference here, and when I see this reference, I want to separate everything in two values, okay? So you see here is a different value, here is a different value, this is different. And when you have the light side, you also have this and this. Both is in the light side and both is is on the dark side here. But the thing is, you don't want to start to map everything in like simultaneously. You want to start with one value. So I basically would maybe try to take, I would take this value, for example, and would apply it to the whole thing. And then I would try to find this kind of dark tone and would work in the dark tone, which is basically the complete shadow area. Same thing for here. So when you have, for example, this light area here, I would rather start with, I think I would prefer to go with this value first, because this is more of a mid-tone. And this is pretty bright already because here he got directly, you can see here, he got directly hit by light. So you have in the face, you have very subtle tones. You have this where it's actually the light is not hitting direct, but here you have all this area here, he directly get hit by light. This, and you see all the small bounces and all the small highlights here are creating, in the end, this very nice reflective effect you have in a face. And if you notice, you just have to look for the shapes, basically. So we have this very strong cast shadow here, this shape, which is pretty nice. And when you can start with this, basically, you can start taking this value and working it in, and then you take this, but just take one value again, and then you work on top. I hope this answers your question. So let me start. So again, here we leave this. This is our, make this orange. This is our light plan. Boom. That's the sketch. I also locked the sketch because sometimes if you don't pay attention too much, it can be that you work on your sketch and then you maybe get a bit pissed off when you start to ruin your sketch and you don't realize it. So what I first do when I have my sketch, I do basically another layer below, and then I just show it very quick. I take the magnetic lasso tool, which you have here, but you can also press L, and then you can go very quick over your line work, and you see this tool basically grabs the edge of our drawing. Boom. And then we just take a super tone, take the bucket tool on G, and fill it with a tone. See. And then we have basically the shape. And this is good because we want to paint inside. So we create another layer and then we press Alt and then we create a clipping mask. So when we start to paint, we basically cannot paint outside of the clipping mask. So let's call this base. So this is also good for now. I will not start to refine the silhouette pretty big now because always in the beginning, I just like to very rough work all my base values and tones in, and then we can later on adjust the silhouette at the end. Yeah, so let's do it. So as I said, we have this plan. Another question. Pretty much a beginner question. I sketch a lot, so my question is that I have some problems in getting the facial features correctly in some portrait. Please do suggest some things that would improve this. Okay, here's my number one tip for you. It's my absolute secret tip, and you will never come on this. So how I basically learned to get facial features right is repetition. Sounds pretty obvious, right? But the biggest advantage you can get is if you, for example, start to draw in a sketchbook. I started 4 or 5 years ago when I learned basically to draw and to paint. I started to draw in a sketchbook because everybody said, okay, you have to have a sketchbook. And then I just drew randomly. And at some point when I tried to get better at drawing faces, I had a friend who was also an artist, Adrian Wilkins, and he had this really nice sketchbook where he had super tight line drawings of faces. And then I realized, well, I don't have to draw and paint my faces in Photoshop all the time. It makes more sense if you go for a higher amount of faces and you try to draw them in your sketchbook. So basically what I did is, here, this is, for example, from my 100 head challenge, the head challenge from Ahmed Aldori, and where you have to draw 100 faces in 10 days, and you basically draw 10, like it says, you basically draw 10 faces per day, which is super challenging, but it's absolutely doable. And if you really want to get good at facial features and how to get a good drawing in the beginning, I would always say get a sketchbook and draw at least 5 to 10 faces every day. And you will see you will get better. And it's also fine if you copy them. If you copy the first 50 heads, it's totally fine, because after number 50, you will realize, okay, there are a lot of patterns and a lot of similarities in all heads, because basically we all have the same structure. There's just little nuances in between. So I would say, to really get good at sketches and sketching faces, get a sketchbook and start sketching. Make your own Pinterest board, save interesting images, maybe try the 100 head challenge, 50 head challenge, doesn't matter, but start to draw every day in your sketchbook. And don't take a hard medium. I took a pencil and just a mechanical pencil, basically, where the rubber on the other end. So I always needed just one pencil. And on every single moment I had free time, I tried to draw a face. Yeah, and that's pretty simple. And then just fill a sketchbook, and you will see, if you do this and just fill a whole sketchbook. I filled the sketchbook, I think, in 6 months or something, or 4 months, on off drawing. And yeah, I still do this. And this is so rewarding also at the end if you fill this completely with faces. So I hope this answers your question. So now let's start painting. So first, I just take again the Lasso tool and fill this with a tone. With the bucket tool, can make this a little bit lighter in the beginning so it's easier to see. I do the same thing for his clothing. Not too dark. This is also a thing when you do the grayscale method. It is cool because you can focus on shading and stuff and rendering and don't have to think about color. But the problem for the most beginners is that they think about black as shadow and white as light. and that tends to make the end result looking very weird and also too dark and too contrasty. Because when you see this face, for example, there is basically no such thing as complete white in his face. I would say even if you take this, let's say even this is not only complete on the one scale, so it's not complete white at all. It's a 90. This is an 80 to 90 range here. So don't take white or take black. Try to find the value range in between, because most of the times people mess up the values, and values are really the most important thing, because when the values are right, your colors will look fine. But when your values are off, nothing can help you. Kind of figure out this. Thanks, I kind of figured this out. The practice stuff I am currently on sketching while you paint, but hearing this from an experienced person totally makes me more confident. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like I said, it's really just a practice thing. You know, like 5 years ago, I couldn't draw a straight line. I couldn't draw anything, and it was just like pure practice. And but deliberate practice. So you have to think about what you do, and it always makes sense if you plan things. You know, if you just start to paint anything basically every day, it can be a little bit shitty for your motivation. You know, when you just start to paint and draw stuff which doesn't really make sense for you, or you don't really enjoy it, or you just do it because other people are doing it. Just do things you want to do, and then also do them with a goal in mind. So now we're gonna give the face a little bit more tone. So like I said, when we, for example, went here, this is of course the color range of the face here, but you can see the values here. This is an 85. So I start with a mid-tone for the base. I don't want to start too light. I prefer to work from dark to light. This is the head, and we put it above. Let's make it a little bit more cleaner here. Also, I switch in between the layers when I press Control and just click on the layers, because somebody asked this last time. So if you just press Control and click in between the layers, and you have auto select with when you press Control, you enable auto select. I don't like it to have it always open, because when you then click on something, you accidentally maybe select it, and that's nothing I want. I just want to do it manually. So don't get fooled by this. So first we're gonna clean this up. Also, we sample from current layers. I also flip the image. You will see I will flip the image a lot in between. I have a shortcut for this. It's Control F, just to see mistakes. So, and also, like when you start something, when you do your, I called it your light plan, when you do your lighting in the beginning, just rough, just to keep it in mind. And it's always good because you just can look in between if you are on track of things. So I will start with the face now. Hey Timo, welcome to the live stream. Thanks. So, like I said in the beginning, what we want, actually, we want to use this kind of lighting setup here because this is very comfortable for our sketch. So what I do now, I'm gonna start with the darkest darks basically, or just with darks. So we take a pretty dark. I don't want to go too dark, so I'm gonna take a 10, and then I'm roughly gonna start to work some shapes in. And you can do this just with a simple brush, but you can also take the lasso tool, and then you can have at the beginning cleaner edges on your shapes. And I also have always my sketch here a little bit smaller as a thumbnail, so I see any mistake while working. So now we start with the big shape. So we have the light coming from above. So let's try if this works for us. This is pretty nice on a reference how the shadow shape is wrapping around. And then we're gonna have maybe a second light source from the other side. Not too dark in the beginning. Just start to clean up a little bit the silhouette, just here and there. I'm not sure if I want to give him like a super messed up head where he has like holes and stuff inside, which is always cool because I mean this kind of stuff is easy to do and it sells a little bit like authenticity. So it makes more authentic when you have someone who's have like messed up clothes and stuff. But usually like refining the silhouette is something I like to do at the end. Just a little bit here and there. Okay. Let's continue with this. What we also can do now, we can lower a little bit the opacity of the sketch, which we will do eventually, because when we start to get everything more refined at the end, you will see you don't see the sketch anymore. Basically, the sketch is just helping for the structure and to make sure that we basically know where everything sits. Jesus. Hey, Barbara. Oh, very rough. We work all the shadows in. I think I also want to make this shape a little bit more under the chin. This is pretty nice here. This reference is so good because you see all the shapes of shadow and light completely separated, which will help us to finish this guy very easy. And it's also a build-up process, so you add up some darks and then you go back in and you add some midtones and then you go back and see if you can push it even more. So now on top, so this is my medium gray here. This is my medium gray, and usually the range of a face is from, I would say, on brightest part, it depends on the lighting, but the brightest part usually is a 90 or 95, so it's from here, and it's usually to here. And the shadows on this will be something around a 30, like 30 to darker, basically. Well, this is like the darkest part. This is also very contrasty here. So we're gonna be very careful with how dark we're gonna go in the beginning. That's why I prefer, like, also here we start with a 30 for the cast shadow. This can be way darker, but in the beginning this is better to do. So now we take our layer and we put it below the shadow. So in the beginning, when we start to lay in the lighter tones, like this, and we can also take, for example, we can take also a little bit more artistic brush, which has this nice texture. Now when you start to map stuff in, where we can also take a very simple, I'm gonna do it with a simple brush, so you guys are not, you can basically follow along and also take a simple brush. So this is just a very simple round brush with opacity on set to transfer at the pen pressure. It is so exciting. Yeah, it is. Yeah, true. I mean, it has a part of me. Yeah, I think that's that's maybe your perception. But yeah, maybe it is like this. I don't know. If you see your own face every day, maybe it can happen that you start to put a little bit of yourself in every drawing, every painting you do. So now we're gonna do just roughly put some lighter tones inside. I also, again, I don't want to go too bright with this, just roughly, and I do try to do just simple strokes, not too big, just a bit to push it. And I don't look here, basically, I just look here, because this helps me to see the issues quicker, if there is anything. I'll go back to my shadow layer. Because actually the nose gonna have cast shadow too in our portrait. And then and you see here on the reference, this side, this is a light side and this is a light side, but this is a little bit darker because this side got directly hit by light. So keep this in mind, that if you start to put in your light value, that the other side of the face, which is not directly hit, always will be a little bit darker. So here we have this, we took here a 65 on a scale. So we just take like 55 here. I'll go, and you see I will do a back and forth process, so which means I go in and now add some darker tone to the lips. Also go a little bit darker here on the contact shadow of the mouth, because here where the lips are meeting each other, gonna be the darkest dark. And also, if you, for example, think about a face, there's one thing I always see first is that the darkest parts in the face are basically under the eyelids, nostrils, mouth, under the chin, ears, eyebrows, and those things will always be the darkest parts of the face, always be the darkest darks. And if you, for example, do sketches, you will see that this always works the same. So we can actually go a bit broader here. Boom. Put this in. Take the 50 value here. Put this in here. Go back to the shadow layer. The shadow. Also, he got this. What I said in the beginning. What our light plan is. We want to have a second light source from the right side. So, which means that we're gonna have eventually a shadow shape here under the cheeks, which is gonna be pretty nice because it's gonna be like triangular. And this always looks pretty cool on faces. And this is going to be this part here. So we can actually just roughly map in this part. And I don't blend anything. I just roughly put all the values in. It's just a very simple build-up process. I think actually his hair gonna be very dark. Let's just add his hair. So I think on the reference images, on the reference image, the head he has is very dark, and I want this as well. But I also want to have his hair very dark. I want to give him pitch black hair, super dark, just like work this in here. Pretty rough. And also, I want to have him, part of his hair like wrapping around the ear and maybe create a pretty cool shape. Let's see. And for example, sometimes I take, when I take the lasso tool, I press Control H to hide my selection. So I basically see what I do with my brush without seeing this selection all the time. And we took a very dark value, which is at 9 here. So this part under the head will definitely be pretty dark because it's going to be in the shadow area. And this part here will be lit. So we can just roughly put this in. And parts of the hair here going to be lit because there's going to be some light coming through. Just roughly map this in a bit, another tone. And I think eventually at the end, we also gonna adjust the shape of his hair a little bit, because at the moment it looks a bit too even. It's more interesting when you have some sort of asymmetry. So, but we keep this for later because right now this is not very important. So, do we still have the selection? Yes, we have. So if it would be easier to transform the to take the light, sorry, I have to translate this in English. So the question is basically if it would be easier to make the background darker behind him, to see the values easier on the reference. Yes, of course, this is easier, but if you're a beginner, you can absolutely do this. But for me, it doesn't change that much because at the end, I don't know if I want to display him like a background or not. Maybe not, because like as you see here on my other heads, I work without a background. So my goal is that he function, value, and structure-wise and look-wise alone without a background, and then maybe I add another background later on. But yes, to answer your question, this always is helpful. So I basically make it a little bit harder on myself, which is good because this is practice for me. We go back in. Here also this part of the forehead, which is in shadow, gonna be a little bit darker if it gets closer to the top edge here. Again, we take this value, make it a little bit darker. What you also can do, I mean, at the moment we have this brush, but we can also take, for example, the gradient tool, which is also on a G, and take it and put it on 30%. Control H to get the selection way, and then we just slowly work in a gradation, because usually there's always some sort of gradation in shadow and light, because light radiates. And you see this goes very slow. We I think we are like 40 minutes in, but like the thing we planned in the beginning is always coming together, because I know like, okay, these shapes are working pretty much. So now it's just a process of painting it down. So now we think about every area which get hit by light. So for example here. And remember, the side which get hit by light going to be a little bit, just a tiny bit lighter than the other light side. So now we can also give his eyebrows some sort of tone. I roughly drew in the eyebrows in my sketch, just like a pretty loose shape. And again, we don't look here, we look here, because we want to see how it works from far. How does it look when we take the sketch away? Yeah, and you see like these are all the shadow shapes we basically took from here to here. But the thing is, like, this is not going to be directly translatable on our sketch because our head is a little bit turned to the other side. We just have to keep this in mind, but then it's totally fine. Again, taking the gradient tool on the right layer is. What is pretty nice also on the reference, that the eye socket here get hit by the bounce light of his cheek. So this is going to be a little bit brighter here. So we can make it dark here. Make it a little bit brighter on the top. Again, Control H to get it away. The lasso tool is super handy to get in your base shapes, because at the end you will paint over it anyways with a brush. But in the beginning, it's super nice to have a very clear separation of light and shadow side. Also the nose, get a very nice wrap around here. Boom. And here we have to make sure later on that actually the shadow on the nose and the cast shadow next to the nose, so off the nose, so that this shadow edge and this shadow edge will be different. So this edge will be harder and this will be more firm. You can see this here actually. So this is a very softer edge of the shadow, which get very loose because we have a very round transition here, and this is a direct cast shadow here from this edge, and that's why this shadow edge here is a little bit sharper. Hey Naveen, welcome back to live stream. I hope you had a great week. Let's flip it. So we can also gonna just a little bit more light here. Just get it here. Just get it here. This will receive a little bit more bounce light. What we can do now is, when we have a very clear separation, what I usually like to do is I like to merge at some point the layers, but it's nothing we're gonna do for now. We're still gonna do it on 2 different layers. And usually a face also, like we could take this away, and this is readable already, like the face. That's why you have to be very careful with the midtones in between. Also now I slowly start to smudge. So the smudge tool here is on the side. I put it on S, and I also use a dust brush, basically. Here, a brush which I can show you the brush. So when I take the brush here, this is something I use for environments. When I have to create some dust particles like sand particles. And this is also something I discovered while doing the challenge, when I take my smudge tool and select my dust brush, and I start to blend some colors or values, and you do this on a face, you will see that you have that you create also, you will gonna easily smudge and soften the edges of your tones, but you also add automatically some texture to your face already in the beginning. You see this? And this looks a little bit also like skin texture. I think we're gonna make this more into shadow here. This looks super ugly in the beginning, but when you spend a couple hours painting this, it's gonna turn out pretty okay, I guess. So we can also erase a little bit of it, because the tone below, pretty good actually. We want to think about the planes and the face. So which plane got directly hit, which just receives a little bit of light. It's just a back and forth. So we can also start now to take a little bit of lighter value. So let's take a 84. And now we can look, for example, at this side here. You see all these parts. when you see all the parts which are like very bright, which are here on the eyes, and you have this very small planes under the eye, in the eye socket, and on the edge of the eye socket, and on the nose and on the lips, and those are the brightest parts of the face, and also the rim light. But a lot of people, when they do grayscale, they really think about like light as white, and when they start with white directly, which is like 100, this always will turn out very weird. So just make sure when you start to add light that you don't go on the full scale. The same as for your shadows, because there's never going to be something which will be a complete dark, like, because this means complete absence of light, and the only place you can find this is space, and not here, not in Photoshop. So can start very slowly, just a little bit of light here, a little bit of here. Basically everything which get directly hit by the light will be very bright. There's something you usually do at the end. I just wanted to show you this. Now, here is going to be definitely some sort of highlight. There will be some sort of highlight here and here. And now we work in between again. Now we can soften the edge of the shadow. And also we start to basically work on the shadow shape to make it a little bit more nicer looking. Again, smudge it with the smudge tool. Someone sees my... It's always embarrassing for me when someone sees my whip. Okay. Yeah, I mean, a whip is a whip. That's why it's called whip, right? So if it's embarrassing for you, don't show it. Otherwise, you want feedback on it, then show it. It's also something, it's a process of learning, is when you start to ask friends or colleagues for feedback, because if you take all your all this thinking of, you have this super cool drawing, or you have this baby, you have to protect your artwork, and when you take this thinking away and just want to make a good image, you will always have a better image when you ask people for feedback, because there's usually nothing as bad feedback. And you also can filter the feedback of people, so nobody says, because someone says, yeah, this looks weird, or this can be the perception of the person, this can be taste, this can be everything, so don't worry so much about it. Okay, so man, the chat is super quiet today. No questions, no nothing. I mean, it's fine for me. I can focus on painting. So, same thing here for the head. We took a base value which is almost the value of it, so we now just take a darker value and start to work in the shadow shape with the lasso tool first, because then we have a hard edge to build up. Or maybe I take another layer above. This is now on one layer. Come on. So, and this is also thanks a lot, Barbara. This is also, his head is a cylinder. And if you know how to render cylinder, hey, welcome to the live stream. I hope you had a great week too. And you're ready for the next one. Also, like when you want to render this is basically a cylinder. So you only have to know how to render a cylinder and how light on a cylinder works. So let's say you have a cylinder. This is a pretty ugly cylinder. Okay, let's make it look a little bit more like a cylinder. And then so let's say cylinder get lit by light. And then this part is basically just a cylinder. So if there's light coming from here and hits it, then here is going to be some sort of core shadow, which means that's the edge where light gets terminated, and this is actually called a terminator. And if you have light on the other side as well, this side also going to be lit, but let's say there's no light, it's going to be darker here. Okay, so get better, bro. Drink a lot of tea. It's so nice from saying that my voice is smooth, but I always feel my voice sounds so annoying. I don't like hear myself talking. So now we can also make the part under there a little bit darker here. Of course, you also have to do some sounds when you do your. This is necessary. Otherwise, this not will work. You have to make it. That's maybe a bit too dark. Just gently working this in. So always good to think about our light plan. So we made this maybe not so optimal here. Just maybe a little bit more here. I think it's also something you have to try, because sometimes you create a shape and it does not work as you planned it. This can always happen. Oh, let me change the music and this. Way better. Any questions? Concerns? But you know all this already, Barbara. You can't hear music? I'm completely quiet? Again? Damn it. Again, 1 hour in. this is live entertainment. Okay, let me switch this up. Okay. Can you hear the music now? Always the same thing. Okay. Thanks for mentioning it. Naveen, next time you have to come earlier so we can pre-check everything. Quinny? No, I don't know Quinny. What is Quinny? If I always work from light to dark or dark to light, or if I go in a specific any specific routes? No. So usually, I would advise to if you a beginner, I would advise to work from dark to light, but usually you can start from light to dark if you comfortable doing this. I actually work pretty messy, so in the beginning I try to at least get my my light and shadow separation in, so the image not going to be muddy, and I see my shadow shapes in the beginning, so I make sure I have nice shadow shapes. But later on, you already see me here jumping around from A to B to C to D and then back to B. That's just when my brain basically goes in autopilot, then I just paint wherever I want and where I see issues, you know. How's it for you? You mean Quinny from Instagram? Yeah. I saw that somebody wrote that she passed away. She was pretty sick, right? Yeah, that's so sad. And I actually read some of her posts in between when she said that she get basically that she is in therapy again, and that she has pain and stuff, but she still managed to do Insta posts and stuff. That's so crazy. Yeah, it's so sad. How's it for you, Barbara? How do you work? I actually never asked you. is there any particular reason why it's easier for beginners to work from dark to light? That's actually a good question. I think the range I think it's easier because when you, for example, see this image here, the dark shapes are very dominant and easy to see. So you see this dark area and you see this dark area. And I think when you see the light area, you have very small, subtle light changes. Like the comparison from this light area to this light area is just very subtle, very small. Then you have the small highlights. So I think for a beginner, it's better to start with for example, the shadow shapes or the cast shadows or the darker areas, because then they can just focus on the shadow shapes at first. So they make sure the image works from the beginning and they don't get distracted by all the stuff like small little reflections and highlights and stuff, because this is something you usually do in the end. But I think if you're a professional, it really doesn't matter. Yeah, I agree. It's definitely important to have some sort of to have your own way of work in the beginning. I think also if you start out, you start to look at every possible thing. I think also my way of working is just a complete mixture of all the artists I looked at, how they worked and stuff. Even I think, for example, I also in the beginning, Murat showed me a lot of stuff, and I kept a lot of the things he told me and showed me in the beginning. Definitely everything about silhouette I know from Murat, because he preached it, but which was absolutely good. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so you basically, you start with the darkest and then the lightest and then you work in between. Yeah, that's something I like to do as well. But yeah, of course, you can also start with the midtones. So yeah, I think it's really a preference and where you feel you're most comfortable with. I still don't like this shape here on his head. I think at first I will make this dark here. And when we add the rim light later, I'm gonna lit this side again, because at the moment this doesn't look as I would like to have it. What are you guys working on? Or what you worked on the weekend? I'm interested to know. Do you guys have any projects, any stuff you do? Work, not work, work related? You built a staircase. Wow. Oh, shit. Okay. I feel stupid now. I feel useless. I'm just sitting here painting a face and this guy is building staircases. So let's go back to the face. Hey Feist, how's it going, man? Welcome to live stream. You learn how to draw backgrounds, okay? How did you actually tackle that? Did you did some specific exercise? You're not stupid, bro. You just build a staircase. How good is it? You come into the office and someone asks you, "What have you done for the weekend?" I built a staircase. And you? I draw a face. So now let's take a bit more textured brush. It's actually a brush I did, which is a little bit an interpretation of an artist I really admire. His name is Yoon Kim, and he does this really sick drawings and paintings, and he always has some sort of uh, line strokiness. Like you see the lines here. It's a brush. I basically his paintings, and you see he basically does his paintings, and he create a lot of patterns and a lot of shapes with this kind of look, and this looks super cool. Sometimes I just use this one just to follow the form. And now we actually have to start to build up the face, which is for me the coolest phase of everything, because now we become a sculptor and we're gonna start to sculpt the face. Try to think about every form change. Also here, like this is a 50, so it's gonna be a very subtle form change here, because the light comes from here, hits here, and then below this plane is gonna be a little bit darker. So we add a darker tone, but very subtle. See, when you put it on this side, this is super dark. Like I said in the beginning, when you see light sides, this side compared to this side is a little bit lighter. It's still a light side. It's a side which get hit by light, but the light from here is not the same on this side, because this does not directly receive so much light as this side. Ah, yeah, okay. Yeah, I know him. This is Polish guy, right? That does this nice Japanese background paintings, which look a little bit like in this Ghibli style. Yeah, you got pretty cool videos on YouTube. It's true. Feist, how's it going for you? What are you working on? So I indicated also a little beard here. Then you're gonna have some sort of beard, but I wasn't 100% sure how I want to do it this time, because I had this Midas character on the last time with a lot of beard, and I don't know if I want to give him again so much beard. Why are you asking this again, Barbara? Yeah, I mean, yeah, this can be helpful if you want, but this, for me, it doesn't change anything. Or is this too bright for you? When this is too bright for you, I can darken this down. I'm sorry, I did not consider this. What is this actually? Oh, it's an 85. I can make it a little bit darker. Like this. I'm sorry if it was too bright. And this is a very slow process. Very gently work stuff in. Now we can start also to work more on the shadow area. So we can make the cast shadow on this side a bit more darker. And now we're actually gonna adjust also the midtones. This. We can also lower the opacity of the sketch a little bit. A bit more now. So if you take it away, you see slowly we build up the process. Yeah, slowly we go there. But I also I don't like to take my time with all the stuff. If I'm not in a hurry, there's no production thing or anything. you just can really enjoy the whole process of doing it. And I also want to learn maybe something new this time. Just give the hair a little bit more texture here, a little bit. Boom, boom. Darken it. Okay, now let's go to the jacket. Just the jacket base value here is 8, so we just go a little bit less, no complete dark. And usually when you have a material which is not very reflective, the value transition is not so fast. Just want to give it a little bit more tone on the edge. Thanks, Barbara. And I want to have him a very strong, like this it's a little bit stylized actually, his face. Because he got very small eyes and super edgy face, but I find it kind of cool. Can actually start to do the cast shadows here. So light comes from here, and we later on gonna have a little bit light here. So let's just give it a small gradation. This kind of works. It should be more darker here. Also, over the whole chapter so far, I always took a lot of time on the paintings. I usually spend like an hour for the sketch. It's pretty rough as this one. And then I spend sometimes 3 to 6 hours even. It depends on the complexity and what I want to achieve. And sometimes I enjoy the painting so much that I just continue painting on this guy, on his head, because the process makes so much fun. Sometimes you also in the beginning don't really know, or at least it's for me that I don't know 100% what I want to achieve, or what kind of look I want. Okay. It is? Oh, I mean, you know this better than me, Murat. I don't know if how his rendering style is actually. I mean, I know his end result, and I think he takes he works grayscale into color, right? But I don't know how he actually really works from step to step. But I mean, his work is amazing, so I guess it's good. Guys, stop it. He does not look like me. Maybe. Okay. Okay, he looks like me. Like Barbara said before, there's always a little bit of you in every painting you do. Ohne better. Just wait. Now it's time that we actually can work a little bit on the silhouette. Actually, to take the value of the current layer. Salut, mon ami. Welcome to the live stream. How's your work going? Curious to see. Oh, what is happening here? Okay, but did you continue it? I'm curious. Nice. Dimitri, by the way, is also an amazing artist. I work together with him at Buga. You guys should check out his work. I think if you go on Instagram and just type in his name, you can also find him. So let's take the sketch away. Okay, we still leave it. So he got this very strong mouth area. So now the big question, do I want to give him like this beard in the sketch, or do I want to leave it like this? Let's try it. Oh, it's actually not bad. I think we can give him a cool shape. That should work. Enjoy cooking. Yeah, thanks, and see you tomorrow. Greetings to Clara. Do I actually have another reference for the beard? Oh yeah, this could work. Dun, 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 dun. Hey, Plum. Welcome to the live stream. I'm happy that you're here. Also, I still experiment with everything when it comes to prepping the live stream and try to get people see it actually. I wonder what actually works well, because I really try everything, Instagram, Facebook, just to see where people respond. Now he reminds me a little bit of this guy from Walking Dead. I don't know what the actor's name is. What is actually... Fucking dead cast. Stephen Ark. He reminds me a little bit of Stephen Ark. Just in case you don't know who Stephen Ark is. Wow. It's that guy. Yeah. With the beard and stuff, it really reminds me of him. That's actually a pretty nice reference. It's a pretty good reference for his beard. I take it. Do we have place? No, we just put the buff. Then just all the other stuff we don't need. Yeah, it looks like him. It's him. Yeah, beards are pretty tough to do. I agree. Yeah, but I think if you handle beards like hair, for example, like if you think about one main shape, and then just make sure that the edges have a nice rhythm and are not too soft everywhere, then it's actually pretty doable. I think also it's the tough thing is the volume of it, to create really the volume and to indicate the small light spots. But his beard is pretty nice. It comes in pretty handy. Now he looks like hola mi hombre señor Janos. No. Nein, so sieht er nicht aus. If there's a streaming schedule, no, at the moment there's actually no schedule. I just this is my second time streaming, and I just want to try out the format because at the moment I work on content for the next YouTube videos and also for the next Skillshare class. But this time the content takes me a little bit longer, and I wanted to do this live streams in between, so you guys maybe don't get bored, or like I still have some stuff I can show and share. And I like the format actually, to talk to you guys and answer questions and continue my head challenge, because the other stuff I do has nothing to do with the head challenge. Yeah, so at the moment there's no schedule, but last week I also streamed on Sunday, and I think Sunday is actually a pretty good day to do it, but I don't want to set everything in stone yet, so I can be more flexible with the stuff. So, okay, how long we painting on this guy? So at the moment we paint around 1 hour and 30 minutes, I would say. 1.5 hours. We can actually just go back. Just for everyone who joined now. So basically we started with the sketch. And then here's the sketch. Whoop. Then we thought about, okay, what could be a nice light setup? Having a direct light source from here and maybe a light source at the end here as a rim light. And then we made a base silhouette shape. And then we basically worked from dark to light and started to paint in all the midtones. And I'm actually getting at some point pretty messy when I do my own stuff. So I work back and forth as I want. So I work on a face, then I work on clothing, then on the hair, etc., etc. Yeah. And yeah, it's like 1.5 hours. And usually on all of my hats here, I've done so far, I think on the King Midas, I painted 4 to 6 hours. This one was pretty quick. This was like 3 hours, 3 hours. She was actually, she took me very long. I painted like, I think like 8 hours on her, but I just changed so much stuff. Also, this guy was super tough. It was like 4 hours, 5 hours. So really take your time if you do this. Don't worry about time if you don't have any pressure. Really enjoy the process so you can really learn the most of it if it's your goal. But if you're a professional, don't listen to me. Do whatever you want. So, where was I? Now it's really just pushing everything back and forth. Adding things here and there, make sure that the lighting works. I actually saw when we killed all the layers that there was something not mapped in here. This silhouette doesn't look so nice here. Let me fix this. Because he's a little bit stylized. We can turn down the sketch also again. Any questions? Thoughts? Concerns? No? Great. So let's make the beard a bit darker. Like this. Again, like I said, think when you do hair and beards and stuff, first the main shape is important and then the edges and then the volume. Cool, man. Or girl. But I guess it's a casual grotesque boy. Still the best name ever. Sorry, but this name is just so good. That's nice to hear. I mean, you actually can learn something from me, Barbara. Ooh, I like this little tingling hair here. I think I want it. Also, always don't forget the cast shadow under the eyelids. Actually have to refine this light shape here a little bit. And see, everything is made with one texture, with one simple brush. No big texture brushes that we used. The only thing we use is the dust brush on smudge to smudge edges and to add some sort of very subtle skin tone texture. So what we actually can do at this point, what I like to do, now we have all the layers. You see, like at the beginning I was trying to work very strategically, and now we created so many layers. But what I like to do at some point, I mark all the layers, press Ctrl J, so duplicate, and then Ctrl E, and then I merge all the layers. And this one I'm gonna group now and turn it off. And now we have everything on one layer, and now this basically gonna speed up our process again, because now we just work on one layer and we don't need to switch in between so many layers, and we can work on the silhouette simultaneously while we add some things in the face. For example, like this here. Do I still have something open? That's brush. Now we can refine the edge first. Always start with a hard edge. And when you want to do soft edges, also like if you want to do a trend, like when, for example, a lot of artists and traditional painters, what they do, when they do the edge control, so they have a hard edge, soft edge, hard edge, soft edge in a good rhythm. I would always recommend do this at the end. Always start with a hard edge in the beginning, because then you can always take stuff away. But if you start with a soft edge, you have to paint stuff back in if you need a hard edge, for example. This can be a little bit annoying. Zoom out a bit. So check our light reference, which was this one. Yeah, I think if we spend a little bit more time on painting the dude, and at the end, if we add the second light source, the rim light from the other side, this can work out pretty well. And we can almost take the sketch away. See, we worked on so much stuff, but I also realize now that there's so much stuff we haven't worked on now. For example, the nose. I haven't done any work on the nose yet. Also, what you will realize at some point is when you further in your painting, gonna go smaller and smaller and smaller. It's always good in the beginning to start with big, bold strokes. And now I also start to do some sort of like sketchiness in my painting, because that's also something I realized for myself as when I started this challenge. There's something I really like about the way of drawing and painting faces. I already talked about this, I think, last time, but I also talked in one of my YouTube video about this. There is this correlation between drawing and painting, and I realized at some point that I like to paint my things as I draw them. So for example, when I do, let's say I do a highlight, I like to do very scratchy small lines to indicate a highlight. For example, like here. Or when I have something here, this stuff here, like this little lines, I really like this, and I want to convey this for my painting because I think this looks pretty cool. So I take a very small brush and I just start to scratch in some very small highlights. And very subtle, so you don't see it so much, so you have to be careful with this so it's not too bright. But let's go back to the nose. The nose bothers me. Also, we're going to see a little bit of the back side of the nose. When I'm ready to do a good portrait, would you recommend me to do it graphite or charcoal or color? I'm sorry, I really don't understand the deeper meaning of the question. What do you mean with when you're ready to do a good portrait? Can you explain this a little bit more precise? What do you mean with this? Because I think even if you think you're not ready to do a portrait, you always should try to make one if you want to get better with it. And the medium does not matter so much. I think you should choose a medium you prefer and you like. If the question is about if I would recommend you to do graphite and charcoal before color, if you have really no experience, I would always say yes. Try to do it in graphite and color, in graphite and pencil. I actually learned most of my faces by doing this kind of stuff here, like doing little pencil drawings of faces and just doing really a lot of those. This is something I would always recommend to anyone to get better at drawing faces or facial features. We just had this question in the beginning of the stream. I would recommend this to everyone who really want to get good at drawing faces or painting faces even, because when you do a lot of sketches and drawings of faces, you tend to realize there are a lot of patterns in the face and similarities, because usually the structure is almost the same everywhere. Of course, you have very subtle differences, but most of them are always the same. And also, if you have a black guy or if you have a white guy, they maybe have a little bit different bone structure, but when they both hit by the same light source, the shapes which are get created are almost the same, and the patterns you see in the face are almost the same. So that's why I would always recommend take a sketchbook, grab a pencil, something which is super handy and easy to do, and then start to draw a lot of faces. This is from the 100 head challenge, where I drew like one sketchbook page a day, where I did 10 heads per day. And I absolutely recommend this to anyone who wants to get better at this, because if you really try to draw a lot of those, and let's say you copy all of them, and when you're at 50, you have such a big learning curve when you really focus on try to learn something, just one thing from every head. If you don't want to get the likeness of it, so you don't want to have like to copy it one to one, just try to capture it in your own way, but try to draw it as good as you can. Just give your ever best you can give on the drawing. And when you copy 50 faces, you will have such a learning curve after 50 faces, for example. When you then go back to draw your head from imagination, then you will see the absolute improvement. I can actually show you this in the sketchbook here. So let's say before the 50 head challenge, I drew a face. Let me see. I drew so many faces here. Yeah, for example, those faces here. Those are all faces which I did from imagination before the 100 head challenge. And you see, they're all not good. They all look a little bit weird. The head structure is not correct. I don't spend a lot of time on making a nice silhouette. I don't think about the silhouette, actually. That's something I realized pretty much in the process of doing the 100 heads, that even in my drawings, it's absolutely crucial and important that you spend a lot of time to create a very nice and interesting silhouette. Also, to have some sort of asymmetry in the silhouette, which make it more appealing to the viewer. And then after my 100 head challenge, those were the first heads I drew after the 100 head challenge, and from imagination, and the features were already better. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to stop here. So I continued on doing copies, and then I did again faces from imagination, and they get better and better. They're not perfect yet, but still I saw the improvement. And then I did some sketches in Starbucks when I was with my girlfriend in Barcelona. We sit in a Starbucks and I saw some people, and then I just sketched them on and off. Yeah, so I absolutely can recommend this to you. Get a sketchbook and start drawing if you want to get better. And then when you're comfortable in rendering and shading, also the thing is, like, start simple. Okay, just start with a simple sketch and don't render them with pencil. And when you feel more comfortable with pencil, maybe try to, for example, here, at some point when I sketched so many faces, I started to render the face because I wanted to see, okay, can I actually render the face with pencil and then take this to the way I paint the face in Grayscale? Because this is basically the same process. It's just a different medium. And I can. So you see all the scratchy lines here, for example, all the scratchy lines on the drawing. And that's something I want to take over to my painting style. No, but that's actually the point where I'm right now, where I do those paintings and the paintings of the heads, and I try to take my drawing technique and use it to my advantage and try to create my own style with it. So I hope this answers your question and helped. Thanks a lot. Yeah, but it's just practice. It's just practice. It's enjoying the process, doing it a lot, and also analyzing your own process, I think, is very important. I think Sid Mead, who passed away, said something like, you have to be the artist, you have to be the producer, you have to be your own manager, you have to be the unknown person who sees the work the first time to truly analyze and judge if it's good work, bad work. Are you leaving? Ciao, Naveen. Have a good one. Have a good Southern week. Thanks for joining. And hopefully I don't fuck up the sound next time. Yeah. I will send you a message before. Or you send me a reminder. Don't mess up the sound. Can work a little bit more on the lips. Definitely better edge. Also adjust a little bit here the silhouette. I wonder if I like the shape here of the hair. This looks a little bit too even, like the shape of this part of the hair and this part, it looks almost the same. So maybe we make this part a little bit more dominant. And also try to lead the eye back into the face with this pointy edge here of the hair. Also, it's some sort of stylization. Also, like this spiky shapes make him look a little bit more evil, I would say. So like we use a lasso tool for this to have hard edges, so we don't have to do everything with the brush. Yeah, it's coming together slow and slow and slow. It's really a build-up process. Still, the face is pretty messy still, but we can still enjoy this. Also, like I like to smudge the values now here in the face because this part is pretty even. And because of we choose this grayscale method, we have to paint over it anyways when we add color. But I think we will not come to the color stage today, guys, because we already we're already over 2 hours into live stream, and I hope this is entertaining for you. But I think also I still have to paint a little bit more on the grayscale image to then to come to the color stage. Freut mich, dass dir gefallen hat. Yeah, guys, I think I will end the stream very soon. Thanks for joining the stream again, guys. I'm really thankful for your support, and I hope this was somehow entertaining and interesting for you guys. Have a good sleep, have a good start in the day, and make sure to activate the notification bell on my YouTube channel so you get the notification for the next stream. Otherwise, just check out my Instagram to see when I'm gonna stream again. And yeah, I will see if I'm gonna continue render this guy until the next stream, or if I'm gonna continue rendering it on the next stream. But I will let you know. So thanks a lot for joining. Yeah, this was the second live stream. Have a good start in the week. Thanks for joining. I hope this was cool for you. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, and see you in the next stream, guys. Bye bye.